Once upon a time in the quiet town of Whimsyville, there lived a peculiar cat named Professor Whiskers. Professor Whiskers was not your ordinary feline. He had a fondness for adventure and a knack for getting into the most hilarious predicaments. One sunny morning, Professor Whiskers decided he wanted to become a world-famous detective. He donned a tiny deerstalker hat and a miniature magnifying glass and set off on his first case, finding out who had been stealing all the cookies from Mrs. Puddlewig's bakery. With his tail held high, Professor Whiskers marched to the bakery and began inspecting the scene. He examined crumbs, paw prints, and even interrogated a mischievous-looking squirrel named Mr. Nutterkins. But all he found were empty cookie jars and a suspiciously stuffed squirrel belly. Undeterred, Professor Whiskers declared, "This is a job for the world's greatest detective." He donned a tiny cape, climbed onto his trusty skateboard, and sped off to the town library. There, he read every detective novel he could find, including classics like Sherlock Holmes and The Case of the Missing Bone and The Great Gatsby and the Stolen Fish. Equipped with newfound knowledge, Professor Whiskers set up a cookie trap at the bakery. He cleverly disguised it as a scratching post, complete with a sign that read, "Free belly rubs." As night fell, he hid behind a stack of flour sacks and waited. Soon, the sound of munching filled the bakery, and Professor Whiskers pounced. He flicked on a blinding flashlight and found himself face to face with a gang of mischievous mice led by their fearless leader, Marvin the Muncher. Marvin squeaked, "We couldn't resist the delicious aroma of cookies." Professor Whiskers raised an eyebrow, or would have if he had won, and said, "Well, you shouldn't steal, but how about a deal? You help Mrs. Puddlewig bake the cookies, and you can have all the cookie crumbs you want." Marvin and his mousy gang agreed, and the bakery became a bustling cookie factory with mice in chef hats and aprons. The aroma of freshly baked cookies filled Whimsyville, making everyone happy. Word of Professor Whiskers' detective skills spread throughout the town, and soon, he had more cases than he could handle. He became known as the feline Sherlock and even had his own detective agency, complete with a team of animal investigators. But despite all the fame and adventure, Professor Whiskers always found time for a good belly rub and, of course, a cookie or two, or 10. His adventures continued to bring laughter and joy to the quirky town of Whimsyville for many years. And so, dear readers, if you ever find yourself in need of a detective with a furry tail and a taste for cookies, you know who to call, Professor Whiskers, the world's greatest, and funniest, detective. I think you enjoyed the story, kindly like, share and subscribe the channel.